All right, hello and welcome back to another tutorial in Maya. Today, what we're going to take a look at is the 2D fluid container and being able to sort of do a 2D fluid effect and composite it into a scene. Now, this could be a 3D scene, or this could be like a 2D wide shot establishing scene or something like that. But anyway, what we're going to look at is sort of how to work with a 2D fluid effect and create a little waterfall. Okay, now the waterfall is the holy grail of all effects, and generally it's kind of disappointing trying to create water effects because Maya can only handle so much, and a 2D and a 3D fluid effects can kind of tax your processing power, and unless you have a real powerful, fluid dynamics plug-in or something like that, you're kind of stuck with what the tools that we're working with are. And, in this case, we're just using a simple 2D fluid container. And as you see here, the composite looks something like this. I have an image attached to the camera plane. And in this first 2D container, I just sort of did a simulation of, some water falling, and it's pretty predictable. Water falling is sort of just that. There's not a lot of other dynamic qualities to it other than it disperses and it dissipates, and it has some fog and stuff. As you'll notice over here in this example of the 2D fluid, there's an object that is obstructing the overall fluid as it's coming down. So that's something to keep in mind, that simple objects can have an effect on a 2D fluid container. So essentially, let me pause this for a second, and I'm going to show you kind of what a render looks like. Let's escape that. And I'm going to render this out, and we'll see. Right now you can see where that fluid is sort of flowing down here and into the water, and this one is sort of broken apart by that object that I had impeding the water progress. So anyway, you'll notice that the water just sort of does what it does, and I can imagine from this kind of looks like what it would be in this environment. But really what it is it's about matching up that 2D fluid effect with what your environment is, because right now I can see where this is sort of in the shadow area, or it should be if it were coming back off in here. So this might have a little bit more of a bluish tinge to it, but you get the idea. This is just a quick example of the using that fluid in here. And let's take a look and see what this looks like. I'm going to go back to the beginning. You'll notice too that the initial state is set so that it's already flowing down, and we'll go through that. I'm going to kind of walk you through the process of just creating a quick 2D fluid effect, and we'll add something in there to obstruct its flow. But this will get you on a good starting point for just doing a waterfall in the background or something like that, where essentially you don't need to see it in 3D. You know what I mean? Okay, so there you have it. Now, it's a fairly simple process of connecting an object to impede the flow of this fluid container by selecting your object first, and then select your fluid container, and then just simply come up to your fluid effects and go to make collide. All right, and that will make those things collide. So you can see the possibilities right there that you have with doing a 2D effect. So let's get started. Let's go to just a fresh scene, and we'll start from scratch real quick. I'm gonna just go ahead and save my scene there. We'll go to continue. There it is, and we'll go to file, and I'm going to go to a new scene. All right, well, the first thing we want to do is maybe set that scene up to about maybe I'll set this one at like 1,000 frames, and that should give us a good water flow there. All right, so we're almost ready to go. But before we get too far, make sure that you always go check out Lester Banks, because he always has good stuff for your brain. Maya tutorials, After Effects tutorials. Lester is out on the internet at all hours of the night and day, finding good things for your brain. Okay, so there you have it. And when you're done with Lester, Go to Vimeo, you'll find Alex Villamon. He does the Green Soda TV and features my tutorials and others as well. Everything that's relevant to Maya and really cool stuff that your brain might also benefit from. Okay, so go check out Alex, go check out Lester. Now, let's come up here into Maya and just create a fluid effect. Let's just go for a standard 2D container with emitter, and go ahead and check your options. Maybe reset your settings, and we'll just go with the default settings. I'll hit apply and close, and let's take a front view from there and just go to the beginning of the animation and check out what's happening. You may get little dots like that. That's cool. That's just because you're not in your shaded mode. So turn on your shaded mode, hit 6 on the keyboard to go in there. Now we can kind of see what's happening here with this fluid. It's reacting just like it would with a fluid in the middle, and it's emitting, and it's a basic omni emitter, and that's kind of what it's doing. But in order to get started here, let's go back and go to this fluid container first. And you might want to bring up your outliner. It's always good for having, to choose between stuff here. Now you have your fluid shape, and then you have your emitter 1. And these are parented to each other, so your emitter is always inside of your fluid 1. So if you activate your emitter, you'll get your tabs, and you get your attributes here. Let's go to the W on the keyboard, or just go to your move tool and drag this emitter down. And let's see what happens there. Let's go back to the beginning and take a play. This is kind of what happens when you first start using a 2D fluid. It just looks the same. It's like, what do I do with this? Well, we want to turn it into a waterfall. So, first it's looking kind of like smoke, and that's cool and everything, but really we want it to have more properties of like the waterfall. But now we have the 2D container basically created. We may want to come up into the fluid shape here for a second, and I'm going to move the outliner out of the way. We'll take a look at kind of what our properties are of our container. Right now you see it's pretty much square, and since it's a 2D container, it's pretty thin. Basically we're just working with X and Y and not Z depth. So anyway, just something to be aware of. I think what I'll do is just leave these leave these where they're at, and I may want to up the resolution from 40 to say maybe 160, and that'll basically just give us a better look. I'll go ahead and do a render here, and let's just sort of see what we got. Right now it's at 640 by 480, so let's take a look at what else happens here. So as we play through the simulation, it basically just the smoke rises, or the fluid rises and goes into that container, but we're not really concerned with all of this stuff around this area. We want to get rid of as much as stuff around here as we can. So let's do a couple of changes first to the fluid container. If you come over here to your fluid shape, and you'll see that you have a boundary for X and a boundary for Y. Well, if we just set that to none, and we don't really want the sides to affect anything, so let's just put everything to none and go back and then take another play. And it'll take a while of adjusting this stuff to get the hang of kind of what's happening, but as you can see there, it made a big change for the better. Basically it just looks like smoke rising, which is an effect in and of itself if you're trying to do a 2D fluid container effect. So you can take a render on there. Right now it's you can put a light in the scene, and that'll have an effect on this. Right now we're leaving everything at default, and I think what we'll do is just sort of leave it like that for a second, and take a look at what's happening. It's just sort of rising to the top, and that's great, and yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, well, let's work on a couple of other fluid properties, because that doesn't quite look like a waterfall as of yet. And remember, we're doing this in reverse just because. So let's just take a look at what's happening here in default mode. It's going up. All right. Well, what we might want to do is we might want to mess around with the viscosity a little bit. And right now you'll notice that underneath your contents methods section right here, because you have dynamic grid set for density and velocity, we can come down here and do some dynamic things with density and velocity. And let's see here, let's just get down to our density. There it is. The contents, details, density, velocity, right there. It doesn't have anything going on with swirl right yet, and that's okay. The density scale, sometimes we can bring that up or we can bring that down. In this case, I think we might want to bring it up a little bit. I'm not seeing it too well over here, just as a default. So let's bring our density up a little bit to say maybe like 1.25. We'll see what 1.25 does. You'll notice right away, gives it a little bit brighter. Let's do a quick render. And there you go. All right, so it's looking like smoke, which is cool, but we want water. So let's come over here again and let's see what's happening right now. We don't have any noise, any tension, any gradient force, no dissipation. Our buoyancy is at 1. And for the moment, let's just leave everything there, but let's change a little bit. Let's change the noise factor and introduce, let's just do the extreme. Let's go up to a 1 on our noise. And we'll go back to the beginning of the animation, play it out, and you'll notice now it has a lot more, kind of, granular patterning to it, which is cool. So let's do I'll stop it there. We'll do a quick render, and we'll see what that looks like. All right, well, it looks a lot different, and that's good because we kind of want water out of this. And so it's having a little bit more breakup, which is great. And at this point, what we may want to do is look at this fluid container and say, well, essentially we want to rotate that container around over this way so the water is falling down. So, I'll just do a manual rotation. If you want to be exact, you can always come over here and, just go to your rotate Z and set it at -180, and you'll be set. Okay, so now if I go back and play from the beginning, it's now falling water, which is good. It's what we want to see. So essentially, let's let it play for a couple of seconds here, and we'll take a quick render and see what that looks like. All right, as you notice, there it is. And it's, it doesn't look like water yet. It's too perfect. So let's work on sort of softening that up a little bit. You may want to come over back into your tabs, your attribute editor, and let's go down and look at edge drop off for a second, because that is sometimes important in all of this stuff. If you roll down, you'll find a whole bunch of different stuff, and underneath your shading section you'll find edge drop off. So I'm going to bring edge drop off up to about 2. Yeah, I'll just go extreme and go in there and do about a 2. And it kind of disappears in here, as you'll notice, but let's do another play. And there it is. And let's do a quick render. And in the render, you can't even see anything. So we're definitely going to have to play with its transparency values to start out with. So let's, by default, just look at where the transparency value is set. And let's just lower that transparency value quite a bit. And you'll notice that it starts to get a lot brighter over there, and as you go toward black. And let's take a look. So now I can see it at least, and it's kind of looking like water. All right. So let's go back, take another look at where we're at down here. Right now, the incandescent input, we should set this maybe to density and see what happens. You can bring the density up or down. Depending on what your incandescent values are, you should be either assigning them to one or the other. In this case, if I go with a temperature there, let me do a quick render over here. You'll notice that sometimes it'll have an effect over here depending on where you're set with your incandescent input and your opacity input. For the time being, because I just want white, I'm going to sort of set both of these to density. And let's just go from there and look at maybe our opacity values. And if I bring those down a little bit, you can see where you can bring them down, you can bring them up. On the high end, you can sort of change the values here by clicking on this little guy here and bringing it up or down. And so you get the idea. You're going to have to fine tune everything in here according to, you know, what your scene is. So I'm going to do a quick render there. And right now you'll see where this is picking up a different color right now. And, you know, that's let's go back to the beginning and we'll do a quick render. That was from my last render. But yeah, let's do a play here. Let's move this out of the way a little bit. Do a play, and down it goes. I'll try and do a render here real quick. And you'll notice that that's picking up these values of this ramp over here. And you may want to change these colors of your incandescent values a little bit to, you know, match your scene. Right now we should be more into a bluish color, so black I could probably leave alone. Right here I might want to, you know, switch that up to a blue or something. And I may want to do a white on this one. I don't know. It's just a simple, yeah, it's just a simple ramp, but watch what happens. Let's see if it takes effect through there. So just by changing your ramp, you can see where you're going to get different, you know, colors for this. And obviously, when you're working with a 2D fluid, if you don't need it actually coming out, you can stop it at any point right here and come up into your fluid effects and set initial state, so that this would be the initial starting state of your fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and hit set initial state there. And we'll go back to the beginning of the animation, and you can see where that's now taking its effect there. So very cool, just stuff to know about. I'm going to move that out of the way for a minute, and let's do a quick render. Let's hit escape, and we'll do a quick render, and there it is. Now let's maybe go and just see what happens when we attach an image to our image plane, and maybe play around with this fluid effect to see if we can sort of fit it into position. So, you know, find a picture that you like to work with. It doesn't really matter. And let's see here. Let's come over here to our view. Come down to your image plane and go ahead and import an image. In this case, I'll just go to, let's see, my desktop. I think I had one called Blue Old JPEG, and I'll attach that. Okay, so look at what we got now. We have like our fluid effect, and if this were the actual background, let's see if I can go up here into my view. I may want to look at this straight on, so I might go to a front view right here of my fluid effect. And remember, you can use your scale tool for your fluid effect. Let's just choose that guy, and, you know, maybe bring it down a little bit, and maybe bring it over into position. And let's see if we could maybe, like, let's say we wanted to do something like that. You know, it'll take a little messing around with to get it in position and looking correct. You may be dealing with a little bit of scaling. You may be dealing with, you know, making one end of the container larger than the other. And in this case, if I go to my fluid shape 1 here and come up to the top here, you can always change your size by, say, increasing the Y value to like maybe 20, and that'll give you, you know, kind of a larger scale there. In this case, I think I'll just leave it at 10 and try and work with it as it is. And let's say water should be coming off the edge of this cliff. Well, we'll try and move it into position as best you can. Take a render. Let's move it kind of like right in there. And of course, this is just quick, you know, sort of quick stuff, but you'll notice where you see the blue right there. We could switch that up by coming over here and maybe looking at our actual fluid emitter. And in your emitter properties, you'll notice where you have emit fluid color. Well, I'll go ahead and check emit fluid color, and when you do that, you'll notice that it says you must first set the fluid's color method to dynamic grid. Well, okay, I'll set it to dynamic grid. All right, well, there's the color that we're dealing with now. You know, you can change certain things up by messing around with your fluid color here, but for the main part, we're dealing with shading in the actual fluid shape. So going to come down to the fluid shape, and I think what I'll do is just switch this this color back up to a normal ramp of maybe a mid-gray in there somewhere. All right, and now I'll take a quick render, and there you go. You don't see anything. Well, that's because we need to start working with our opacity levels again. And let's come up here and look at our transparency levels, and you'll notice that things look a little weird over here, and it's always going to be a balance in between your what you have various properties set for down here. You're going to have to fool around with that a lot. So essentially I want to stay with density here, and over here I may want to play with just some values of the ramp. Maybe go back and start at the beginning, because sometimes when you make changes, you really should go back to the beginning of the animation and take a look at how it's shaping up from there. So here's a new render, and I can kind of see it coming in here, so I'll go ahead and mess around with that a bit more. I might want to look at my transparency levels a little closer. I might want to come up a little bit more. Oh, not quite that much. Maybe to right there. Do another render, and now you can see where it's sort of coming off the edge of that cliff in there. So anyway, I'm just on a Maya software render. Remember, generally mental ray and high quality settings. Let's get to our quality there. Maybe production settings, just stay small to begin with and work your way up, and then you'll get a better idea what's going on. So anyway, that's the procedure, and that's how you do it. So I hope you learned something. It's all a matter of balance. Really look at what you're doing, and use a 2D effect where a 2D effect is needed. All right. So great. I hope you learned something, and thanks for watching. And as always, be a good person to everyone, period. And enjoy life, and stop back for the next tutorial. All right, thanks for watching. Oh, read a book.